Have you ever had one of those days where you feel totally unstoppable, like you could conquer the world, and then, the very next day, you can barely convince yourself to get off the couch? Yeah, me too. Today, we're going to crack the code on motivation. We're doing a deep dive into the science of what really, truly drives us. So let's get into it. So let's just get real for a second. Take away the deadlines, the bills, all the stuff you have to do. What is it that actually makes you tick? What gets you fired up? Is it a passion project, a sense of purpose, or maybe just the thrill of chasing a goal? Whatever it is for you, there's some incredible science behind it, and we are about to pull back the curtain. Believe it or not, the secret to all of that drive, that fire in your belly, it really boils down to a tiny but oh so powerful chemical messenger in your brain. This little thing is the force behind your ambitions, your cravings, even your feeling of accomplishment. So, you ready to meet the master of motivation? All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, starting with the basics, your brain's built-in reward system. You can think of it like the original operating system for survival, hardwired into us for millions of years. And it runs on a very, very special kind of fuel. And that fuel is called dopamine. You've probably heard of it. It's basically your brain's personal cheerleader. It's that famous feel-good chemical that gives you a little hit of pleasure and satisfaction. And it's basically shouting at your brain, hey, that was amazing, let's totally do that again. And trust me, the power of dopamine is legit. You feel its effects every single day. When your levels are low, everything just feels blah. You're tired, unmotivated, maybe a little down. But when they're high, whoa, you can feel like you're on top of the world. Of course, the real trick is finding that perfect balance right in the middle. And because it feels so good, our brains are literally designed to chase that dopamine rush. This is why you crave a donut, but also why it feels so incredible to crush a huge goal at work. It's the exact same system, reinforcing behaviors that feel good. And that, right there, is an incredibly powerful tool if you want to build better habits. Okay, so dopamine is the chemical kickstart, right? But what about that mental sweet spot, that peak performance state that athletes and artists talk about? Well, psychologists have a name for it. They call it flow. Let's talk about what it is and how you can get in the zone. You know this feeling, I'm sure you do. It's when you're so deep into something that hours just melt away and feel like minutes. The rest of the world just disappears. That is flow. It's the ultimate state of focus, where you and the task at hand become totally one. So, what's the secret recipe for flow? Well, it all starts with having really clear goals, and then diving in with intense concentration. Then you add that feeling of losing yourself in the moment. You know, when that little voice of self-doubt in your head finally goes quiet. But the most important ingredient of all, the activity itself has to feel rewarding to you. And the real key to unlocking flow is hitting that perfect balance between the challenge of the task and your own skill level. See, if something is way too hard, you just get anxious and overwhelmed. If it's way too easy, you're bored out of your mind. But right there in the middle, where the challenge pushes you just to the edge of your abilities, that's the sweet spot. That's where the magic happens. Now that we've covered some of the cool science, let's get practical. How do we take all these ideas about brain chemistry and psychology and actually use them to get more motivated, where, let's face it, a lot of us need it most, at work? When it comes to work, motivation really shows up in two main flavors. First, you've got intrinsic motivation. This is when you're driven from the inside. You just love what you do, and the satisfaction comes from the work itself. And then there's extrinsic motivation, which is all about the external stuff, the paycheck, a promotion, or a pat on the back from your boss. Now, you probably think that more money always equals more motivation, right? Well, it's actually not that simple. And here's where it gets really interesting. A ton of research shows that piling on too many external rewards can actually kill your internal passion for the work. It's wild. It's kind of like turning a hobby you love into a chore. The magic just, poof, disappears. And this brings us to a massive, massive point. That internal spark, that feeling of being motivated, it's not always going to be there. Some days, it just vanishes. So what happens then? What do you do when the motivation well runs dry? Well, that's where discipline comes in. It is the secret weapon for all those days when you're just not feeling it. I love this quote from the legendary Zig Ziglar. He said, "People often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily." It's just a perfect way to remember that motivation isn't some permanent state you achieve. It's a practice. And for those days when you can't find that spark, you need a different system to fall back on. let's break it down really simply. Motivation is your why. It's the big dream, the goal on the horizon that gets you all excited to get started. But discipline? Discipline is the how. It's the system, the habits, the daily grind that actually gets you to the finish line, especially when things get hard. So motivation and discipline aren't fighting each other. They are the ultimate power couple. You absolutely need both of them to succeed. Motivation is the thing that points you in the right direction and sets the destination. But it's discipline that builds the road to get you there, one consistent step at a time. Okay, so what's the foundation that both motivation and discipline are built on? Well, it all comes down to your mindset, your fundamental beliefs about your own abilities. Let's dig into how developing what's called a growth mindset can completely change the game for you. First, let's talk about the opposite, which is the fixed mindset. This is that nagging little voice in your head that says, look, you're either a natural at this or you're not. It's that fear of failure that can keep you from even trying something new or challenging in the first place. Sound familiar? But now let's flip the script and talk about the growth mindset. This is the incredibly powerful belief that your potential is not set in stone. It's the belief that every single challenge is an opportunity to grow. It's the voice that changes, I can't do this, into, I can't do this yet. And I'm telling you, your mindset changes everything. With a fixed mindset, a tough challenge looks like a giant roadblock. But with a growth mindset, that same challenge looks like a stepping stone. It is the fundamental difference between giving up when it gets hard and leveling up because it got hard. So here it is, your own personal motivation toolkit. First, understand your brain's dopamine reward system. Second, find your flow by balancing challenge and skill. Third, tap into that intrinsic drive by focusing on what you actually enjoy. Fourth, build rock-solid discipline for the tough days. And finally, fuel it all with a powerful growth mindset. You've totally got this. We've gone through the biology, the psychology, and the strategy behind what makes us go. You now have the keys to the kingdom, the code to unlock your own motivation. So the only real question left is, what are you going to do with it? It's time to choose your drive. Thanks for tuning in.